Welcome to another edition of the CWE webcast. I'm joined by a different cast than usual this week. We've got Garbage Man to my right. We've got the Garber Snake, Jordan Garber, highly influenced by marijuana, here in the seats. And first time guest, we've got Marty Labossiere, also known to some as Blake Martell. Do you have a preference on how you like to be referred to at this time?
Just Marty Labossiere is fine.
Marty Labossiere is fine. I always remember, like, if anytime I booked you on an event, if you were using the name Marty Labossiere, I always had to go and like pull up your Facebook to figure out how to spell your name. So I never knew how to do it. It was a pain in the ass. I still don't to this day know how to spell your name. Long-time Winnipeg wrestling alumni now. You've been around the scene about 11 years now, I want to say. It's been a good chunk.
Yeah, something like that. 2005, I believe.
Yeah, it's crazy how time flies. I remember when I was like, a couple of years in the business, you were starting to referee, which we'll get into later in the program. You were refereeing my matches, and it was a few years later you're main eventing on shows. So it's crazy how the time goes by, and now we're all getting old, 11 years later. So there's a lot going on in the world of professional wrestling. Before we jump into Marty's Winnipeg wrestling career, there's a ton going on right now. Without me being able to even watch the TV on a weekly basis, I've just been intrigued keeping up with the headlines and the news and everything that's been going on. Big news just broke today. Roman Reigns suspended for wellness policy violation, and that's to be rumored why the title was dropped on Sunday, if it wasn't planning to already. What's your guys' initial reaction to their poster boy, or their new poster boy, going down with a violation?
Very interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to me how they're talking about how if they had known about it before, then it's also very interesting that they would actually go through with the continuation on Monday, where they're booking him into a triple threat match for the next pay-per-view, right?
Was he on Raw?
Yeah, he was on Raw.
How long is it till the next pay-per-view?
Well, it's after. So, like, what is it today? It's like the 21st or something. So they have the draft, which is on July 19th.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think the pay-per-view is 5 weeks. So it's like the 25th or 26th or something like that. So he'll be off, like, the draft will happen. Then he'll be off with suspension like 2 days later. And then the pay-per-view is like 4 or 5 days after that.
I'm not familiar with the wellness policy, like in its details, but I would imagine that it's immediate suspension. So I imagine he popped the test, they kept it quiet to get the title off him and time it properly.
I'm thinking so.
For him to do that.
Probably most likely.
So he can come on back. Your thoughts, Marty?
I'm just curious to know exactly what he did, because no one actually knows. They didn't say, drugs, or it could be,
variety.
He could have smoked some weed with the Garber Snake.
Yeah,
he could have. But
did you smoke some weed with Roman Reigns when he was here for the WWE show?
I didn't, but it's kind of shocking just to see this guy at this level in the WWE, this hierarchy, and literally, bam, he gets hit with a wellness policy violation. It's very shocking, in my opinion. It kind of makes me mad a little bit. It's because, like, I'm a guy that, like, wouldn't mind smoking weed, and if you're a WWE, like, they'll ding at you for even doing little things like that. So it kind of gives you no sense of privacy.
Well, in the U.S., like, marijuana is like a much more serious issue than it is here in Canada. With them being a publicly traded company, they have to kind of take a stance of, we don't approve of this kind of behavior. And I've heard from people that have worked there that for whatever reason, Vince McMahon personally has a dislike for that drug. So that doesn't do any guys any favors, that he's not an advocate of marijuana, even though it's being legalized in some states. But that goes back to a long-time wrestler debate now, at least in recent times, where people are like, let us smoke weed. It's much better for our bodies. It helps heal us instead of feeding us prescription pills that are more damaging to us in the long term.
Yeah.
But legally, you can get a prescription for pills in 50 states and deal with your pain that way. You can't with marijuana. So as a publicly traded company, they have to put that on there. With that being said, it could be anything, and that hasn't been released yet on what it was. But there's been guys that have been busted in the past because they were taking like a supplement that had ingredients in it that was on the wellness policy. Like I remember Jesus Rodriguez got popped for like taking a fat burner or something like that was sold over the counter, but it had ingredients in it that doesn't. What intrigues me about this, and this is just playing wrestling conspiracy theorist, no one in a top position has ever really been popped before.
No.
I think Randy Orton got it a couple times, but he was kind of in the doghouse.
He was already, yeah.
When he got it. But you've never seen a top guy ever get popped for failing a test, especially the world champion.
Yeah.
So it's really weird to me. And here's my wrestling conspiracy theory to throw at you.
Listen.
Roman Reigns has not been producing the numbers on the house shows they had hoped. It's been probably considered a financial failure in terms of him headlining the A loop and it drawing less than the B loop that has Dean Ambrose on top. So their investment hasn't paid off the way they wanted to. Is it much easier for the company to say, hey, this guy failed the wellness policy test, we have to remove him as champion, than admit that they were wrong and they pushed the wrong guy when the fans have been telling them no for the last year?
I think so. I mean, I think it's a matter of...
Is it an easy out for the company?
Very easy out. And I mean, again, back to your... And I enjoy that conspiracy theory because, just trying to think about it at the top of my head, I mean, a lot of guys, that upper echelon there where it's just, there's never been, the guy who has been caught with anything.
And I'm not saying guys do or don't do drugs, but I find it very hard to believe that over 15 years there hasn't been one guy that works
like a
on top
star
that hasn't had to take a painkiller that he wasn't prescribed, or smoked a joint, or took some sleeping pills, or ran some sauce. Who knows?
Something.
I'm not saying they have, but it's hard to believe in our industry that not one person has
over
it.
time. Yeah.
Plus, he's taken to Twitter with acceptance of this crime that he committed or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that could be all part of the conspiracy too. Like, okay, then I don't know. They told you, this is what you're gonna do. Go ahead and do it.
It could just be a matter of, just kind of almost rebranding them in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
In that, I mean, they've just been trying to draw so much sympathy out of them, trying to make the fans kind of almost feel bad for him in a way and just kind of gather that support for him.
Yeah.
In their Money in the Bank match with Seth there, they had an injury stoppage where Roman was hurt, and it was just kind of like...
Is that what the finish was?
Yeah, it led to the finish
Okay.
right away. So they were trying to gather some sort of sympathy for it. It's just, it wasn't working. So I mean, maybe this could be the thing, but I mean, at the same time, the next night on Raw, he was very animated and very passionate in his promos and stuff. So could be, I mean, hey, it could lead to a heel turn.
Right.
I mean, something where...
Well, that's what I think it would, because now all those towns that hate him already are going to be all over him.
Now
he's
he's just
suspended for a drug fail. But yeah, I think it comes down to that. WWE can't, instead of WWE, completely pulling the reins back, no pun intended, and saying, okay, we're gonna knock him down a bit on the cards. He's not drawing major business on the house shows. Now they can be like, no, we have to take the championship off him. He failed the wellness policy test. That's a poor example. Being sent to these children and an image of the company. We had to do it. We didn't want to, but we had to. Instead of, so it's
just protecting their image. So.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see. I guess the answer to all that will be when he comes back in 30 days. Because there have been guys that have been popped before they come back, and they come back stronger than ever.
Yep.
And then there's others that come back and you could never see the light of day of again. I think they've invested too much money in him not to use him in a prominent role, but is he going to be given the ball again, main event WrestleMania again? It's really tough to say.
For a while.
Not if he doesn't reinvent himself.
He's got to do something, I mean, at this point, especially with the reactions he's been getting. So.
With that being said, there was a positive to come out of it. Dean Ambrose is the new world champion, and I will say, I told you so. I've been saying on the podcast here for 6 months now. He's been the most over babyface they've had, and his reactions as a babyface have been a lot stronger than Roman Reigns for God knows how long now. And they just never gave him the ball. They kept putting him in top positions. They weren't burying him by any means or not using him in a prominent position. He was still highly featured on the card, but it was Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, even though Dean Ambrose was drawing a stronger reaction, arguably having better performances, stronger promo. He seemed he just didn't have the WWE look. But that is now irrelevant. He's got the ball, and now he gets to run with it. You think this is a changing of the guard? Is this something that they're going to let him run with and give him a fair opportunity to draw his champion?
I think they'll give him a couple months. I mean, we'll see what happens and how it goes down through SummerSlam. See what they're going to be doing. And I mean, it is going to be interesting now to see what they are going to be doing with Roman. I mean, again, we were talking about the timing, but obviously the big debate now is going to be, do they remove Roman off of this triple threat match? It's how much of an example do they want to set for Roman? And furthermore, how much do they want to, push Dean in this whole Shield thing?
Well, if they're going to keep him in a prominent spot, it's very easy for him to come back as a heel now.
Yeah.
Come back as a heel and work with Dean as the babyface. and maybe draw somebody. Some people want to boo him.
Oh, of course.
So if he goes full tilt with it, if Dean Ambrose is drawing business, they don't have to worry about Roman Reigns carrying that workload.
And at the same time, they're trying to push Seth as a heel, but that hasn't been working as well. So
Yeah, it's so strange, and we talked about it before. Like Kevin Owens is like the only real heel on TV. Like even when Brock Lesnar was booked as a heel, people still cheered him.
Yeah.
People are so clued into wrestling now that it's so hard to legitimately get heel heat.
Yeah.
People, if you're good at what you do, if you're a good heel, people respect it. Yeah, they appreciate it.
Yeah.
So the reactions you get from an audience and how we're trained as wrestlers to get a reaction from the audience doesn't necessarily apply to that genre of wrestling anymore. We go to small town Manitoba, yay boo, wrestling works, heel, babyface. But now people are so clued in that they like heels. Just like
it's cool, right?
Yeah, like heels are booked as sympathetic babyface characters like on regular television shows now. There'll be shows with guys selling drugs or killing people that are spotlighted as the babyface on a normal television show. That just shows how society has changed, or at least has opened up and is openly admitting that's the way they are. It also opens the window. I think they could turn a negative into a positive in the sense that I was, on my soapbox saying I hated how he was booked at WrestleMania against Brock Lesnar and how he was just eaten alive pretty much. So they now have a built-in contender in Brock Lesnar for Dean Ambrose as well, who can come in and be a guy that manhandled him at WrestleMania. So Dean Ambrose, in theory, shouldn't be able to handle another match with him. So you make that match for the championship. There's some intrigue to it. And then if they then put him over on Brock Lesnar, it can then make him as a champion, or it could break him.
Make him as a star, at the very least.
It most definitely could. So there's a lot of exciting matches. They haven't done, Dean Ambrose and AJ Styles yet, and AJ Styles is being booked as a heel now, and he's super over. So the possibilities are endless. I think it's good because Roman Reigns has been the guy that's been trying to push for 2-3 years now. So even though he's still fresh on top, he's been kind of the focus. So this now gives the focus to somebody else.
Yeah.
So, you excited for it?
I am, yeah. It's I'm excited to see what they do with Ambrose. I like them for a long time, so I'm excited to see what they'll do with
He
them.
connects very well with the fans too, and it's just a little more than body image and size or whatnot, but I think it's just people just connect to him as he came out, he's just a dude. That's kind of what he said in his promo on Raw. He's just a regular dude, and a lot of people connect to that. So.
Well, that's just it. And that's the key to wrestling, is connecting with the audience. That's how somebody gets over. And I think that's where Roman Reigns has struggled, is people don't have something they can latch onto. There's not something they can connect to. With somebody like The Rock, he was so charismatic with his promo that everybody was just connected to being entertained.
Yeah, and listening to him, right?
Yeah, Steve Austin was the everyday working man that got to tell his boss to fuck off. Yeah, so people connected. Hulk Hogan was larger than life. There's nobody like Hulk Hogan, so you connected him because he's like, wow, this guy's a star. Dean Ambrose has that ability to connect to the audience in a way that guys don't feel weird cheering him because he's not like a body guy. Where in this day and age, if you're all jacked up, just good-looking muscle guy, guys don't necessarily relate to you all that well. They don't feel threatened by their girlfriend cheering for them.
Yeah.
So he kind of connects with all
facets.
Yeah. I think that's it. As a guy, a casual fan, I think males, a 28-year-old guy is gonna have a hard time cheering Roman Reigns with the way society is now and the way wrestling is booked. I don't want to cheer this guy, because he's not doing any. That's the thing. He's I don't think he does anything wrong. I think he's undervalued. I think he is a good worker and he does do the right things. I think in a world now where they've blown the doors open, where guys are more free reign to do a style of wrestling they want to do, and guys aren't all gassed up anymore. You got guys like AJ Styles that are doing really cool, impressive things. Well, he's gonna stand out now over Roman Reigns, who's working the traditional WWE style.
Yeah.
So it's even though AJ Styles is the heel, I'm gonna cheer this guy. He's doing the cool stuff. Where Roman Reigns,
doing the super, well, I wouldn't say super basic stuff, but a lot of what he's doing is just selling, taking pretty much what the opponent's giving him, and then
yeah.
Just old school technical wrestling. That's pretty much what that is. Just
power, and that's pretty much it.
In a day and age where there's so many different styles now.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned the name AJ Styles a few times. That was one match I have got a chance to watch because everyone was raving about it, so I went and checked it out.
For the Money in the Bank?
Yeah, great match. And AJ Styles has been touted as somebody, phenomenal. He's one of the best in the world. People have said it for 16, 17 years now. I think he really proved it. I could tell, like, just watching him as a performer, he's comfortable now.
Yes.
Like, not that he wasn't before, but you can tell he was fresh and new there and getting adjusted. You could tell he's, like, in his groove now.
Yeah.
He's in there with John Cena, who's, the biggest name in the business, and he looked more comfortable than Cena. Like, he looked like he was home. He looked like he was comfortable, and he was doing his thing, and he was working at a high level, and showed he belongs in main events.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that, and they put him over, which is great. I think, we talked about that last week. It was important for him to get that win to establish a new star, so it wasn't going to hurt John Cena. He's got that win. What do you think's next for AJ Styles?
Well, and again, I mean, we hope that it doesn't go the same route as Kevin Owens, when they continued onto the Battleground and then eventually the payoff at SummerSlam. I think that getting AJ Styles there to SummerSlam, where they evened it up, so Cena wins at Battleground, and then getting there to SummerSlam, I mean, who knows what will happen from there, but I mean, if he goes over, especially as a heel, then then you have that dominant heel force again, with the club.
Has there been any update on Balor coming up to the main roster with the split?
Nothing as of yet. They just booked a program with him and Nakamura in NXT.
Okay.
And they're going to be fighting at SummerSlam, I believe. So
Like the NXT weekend?
yeah, so their NXT pay-per-view there. I'm pretty sure that's what it's going to be leading up to.
I think my prediction is going to be like for Finn Balor is debuting a week after SummerSlam, a week after a major wrestling pay-per-view, because it's all about timing, and I think that would be the perfect timing for him to debut.
Well, they kind of have this interesting dynamic where it's like AJ Styles is with Gallows and Anderson, but sometimes they do things on their own without AJ Styles' approval.
Yep.
So I think that's an easy built-in fix for that to eventually blow up and Balor to slide in and take that spot, and AJ can continue being a babyface if that's the route they want to go, because they're trying to turn him heel, but he's so good at what he does. Like, the people don't want to.
Too phenomenal.
They don't want to boo him, and that's what's so tough for workers of that style. Like, I can attest to that. Wrestling guys that work a really flashy style, there's certain things you can do to combat it, to still make them look like a heel, but you're fighting an uphill battle a lot of times when a guy does so many impressive things. There's like, the more he does, it's like, man, this guy's really cool. I don't want to boo him. I remember Tommy Dreamer telling me that, like, when Rob Van Dam was booked as a heel, everybody, he was always over as a babyface. When he told me he was the only guy to get heat he was the only guy to get Rob Van Dam heat as a heel was when he worked with him, because every time Rob would go for one of his cool things, he would always counter it, move, get the knees up. So every time he still showed off he could do his really cool thing, but he never nailed it. So it was able to display his athletics, but he looked like an asshole for eating it all the time. But that psychology is not necessarily applied with a lot of these guys that are doing cool stuff as a heel.
No.
So that's why not that Kevin Owens doesn't work like a heel. I think he's the best heel they have. He still does so many really cool things where you're like, man, that's so impressive.
Yeah.
That you can't bring yourself to boo him.
Well, even still, like, I mean, Sonny Silva's putting him on commentary where he's just flat out entertaining when you listen to him talk. It's just like, how do you boo this guy?
Yeah.
It's tough for you to want to hate him. It's just everything he does, like in the ring, his moveset. Even the little cheeky things that he does, where it's like he looks like he's gonna set up for a huge high spot, but then he rolls under the ring and he clotheslines the guy, and it's like, well, that makes you laugh. It's like, how do you you can't do that.
Well, it's just like when in the 90s, like Jerry Lawler was supposed to be a heel commentator,
Yeah.
and he was saying jerk things, but they were so funny that you loved watching Jerry Lawler, because it was like he's sitting there insulting Mexicans and Japanese people, and you're laughing with him because it's done in such a humorous way. One last thing about the brand split before we take our first commercial break. It is rumored that they've been reaching out to guys to add some star power. There's been talks of Shelton Benjamin, Carlito. I think even Stevie Richards I saw on a list, which would be really cool, because Stevie's a great dude in great shape. I think better shape than he was when he was on TV.
DDP Yoga,
years ago,
right? Yeah.
But the big ones being Jeff Hardy and Kurt Angle, which has been rumored on and off now for years. But Kurt Angle has confirmed that he has been in talks with Triple H. What do you think this means? What's your excitement level about some of these guys returning?
Kurt Angle, how much time does he have left? It's like, I'm sure he's probably he knows that he's near the end of his career, where it's like they're bringing him in just as a straight nostalgia act to get someone over. I think in talks as well, from what I've heard, that when he does actually hang it up, he wants to like manage American Alpha, so that NXT team. So, similar to like his gimmick with.
But you see, like in nostalgia, like he was like as of this year, he was still having like fucking match of the year candidates.
Yeah.
So I don't see him like being a guy like like Val Venus popped up on Raw. Like he's a cool like novelty character. Kurt Angle can still go. Not that Val can, because he's awesome too.
Yeah.
But just in the sense of like high profile matches, I think you can still put him in there, and people will still be intrigued to buy it. Like people will still pay to see Kurt Angle versus AJ Styles. They'll pay to see Kurt Angle versus Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose versus Roman Reigns versus Cesaro. I think people will still Sami Zayn. I think people will still pay to see those matches because a lot of them have never happened. I think Styles and Angle has from their time in TNA, but a lot of those other matches have never happened anywhere. So I think you can get a lot of mileage out of that. But it's all internet bullshit. But I remember a lot of it was, they want him to work a full-time schedule. He can't do that. I don't think he needs to.
No.
I think like Kurt Angle can do a program on TV that leads to the pay-per-view. Maybe do the bigger markets, do Madison Square Garden house shows and stuff like that. But you don't need him on the road wrestling 4 nights a week.
Yeah.
Like they don't, like Jericho, when he comes back, he'll work the loop and work full-time. But there's a lot of guys that come back and don't. Like I think Randy Orton has a limited house show schedule, and there's certain guys that like don't work Thursdays or Fridays. They only do like 2 of the 3 house shows. I think you can protect Kurt Angle in a way that he can still be of value. I think if you reintroduce him at the proper time in front of the proper crowd, it'll be like inserting a main event guy right back into the fold. So I think he still has enough in the tank. He was such a big star in his era that you can get something out of him.
Yeah. How old is he?
He's got to be in his 40s now.
Yeah.
Because he started when he was like 26, 27. Like he was
Probably around 44, 45-ish.
Yeah, he's around 20 years now. He debuted in 90. He started wrestling, I think, in 97, 98. But he debuted at like that Rumble, was it 99 or 2000 Rumble or something like that? And was like by far the fastest like wrestling wrestler ever.
Oh.
Like went from like
rocket ship.
Yeah, just amazing at what he does. But he's banged up, but you've never seen his work suffer. Like anytime you can go, like I don't watch TNA regularly, but when I would tune in, like it didn't matter if it was just a regular Thursday night Impact episode, he was still wrestling full tilt.
Yep.
And then you do catch the occasional pay-per-view he's on. He was still going out there and wrestling like he was wrestling on a WWE pay-per-view. Like he takes pride in what he does, and that's probably why his body is.
Yeah.
That's why he's Kurt Angle. But I think there's still a lot of room. Like they bring in a guy like Jericho, they bring a guy like Van Dam. They have value still.
Yeah.
And they do that thing with the Dudleys still. And I've been saying that forever. Like they have so many guys that still have such a huge name to them. Why not give the next generation the rub? I think there's more benefit to say a Sami Zayn or a Kevin Owens working a long-term program with a Kurt Angle and coming out on top of a legitimate angle than them just going over on than having a small angle with Titus O'Neil or something like that, because these guys are still viewed as stars to the general public. So it's kind of like a passing of the torch. The other one being Jeff Hardy. When he left, I think he said that he was he was moving more merchandise than John Cena at the time of his departure.
Yes, he was.
And he kind of got busted with that drug stuff shortly after, so it was kind of bad timing. But he left because he wanted a lighter schedule. So he left at arguably the peak of his career. Maybe more people were watching the product in the Attitude Era when he was a part of the tag team and doing the TLC matches. But in terms of his individual career, he was world champion. I think he left shortly after losing the world title. He was on. To think that this guy who was doing squash matches on Raw in the mid '90s in goofy, colorful gear, to guys on Raw and superstars would eventually go on to be a world champion. That's a pretty cool story when you put into perspective what he was able to do, especially considering he's a small guy by WWE standards. He's a pretty tall guy and like a large guy,
Just lanky.
Yeah, so in today's world, he actually looks big because there's so many small wrestlers.
Yeah.
But for his time, he was a really small guy, and they don't really give the ball to small guys there. But he got it, and he was always over. Like if he's somebody that popped out on Raw next week, people would lose their shit. So and so
he did have also a really good match, in my opinion, with Matt Hardy at the recent.
did you catch that?
Yeah, I caught some highlights of it, and that ending was insane. So
Thank you for reminding me of that. I want to watch that. That is on my watch list.
yeah, it was very.
You watched it?
I haven't seen it, no, but that'd be good. That'd be a good one.
Yeah. I remember like everyone was talking about their really weird promo, so I like watched a little bit of it. And
Yeah.
that was the thing, like they actually intrigued people to watch.
Yeah.
But Jeff Hardy, I think, was like the guy to move the needle kind of the most. I think like Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy, when they went to TNA, were the two guys that bumped them up a little bit.
Yeah.
And they tried
Give them
everybody.
that extra prestige.
Yeah, like I think they're big. They're big enough stars that if they came back tomorrow, everyone still knows
That
who they are.
reaction, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like it's not bringing back like a mid card guy to just kind of fill a role. I think those guys can go into a main event program with anybody. Like people want to see Seth Rollins and Jeff Hardy. You want to see Kevin Owens and Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of money on the table with those guys.
Well, with Jeff Hardy, you get that longevity, so I mean, I'm fine with that. Kurt Angle, and I mean, again, just depending on how long you think that he can give to that company, in terms of how long his body will hold out.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, most definitely. I mean, that initial, value when he comes in, like that'll be huge. And then just again, seeing how he works as a program over the next, months or years, to see how long he does.
Well, the rosters are going to be pretty stacked, even though they're going to be thinned out. But I think you can bring those guys in for the big matches throughout the year.
Yeah.
I know guys have kind of shit on that before, like, I'll bring these part-timers in, but they still draw. It's going to bring more eyes on the product, bump up revenue across the board. I don't think it's a bad thing.
No, and I would agree with that.
Jordan Garber, would you smoke a doobie with Kurt Angle?
Oh, definitely. I would smoke a doobie with anyone.
Smoke it, doobie with a transsexual
Well,
costume.
it's just a very broad question. I'd smoke a doobie with any professional wrestler or anyone.
Is Travis Cole
Anyone.
considered a professional
Oh, he
wrestler?
probably couldn't even handle a hit of it. So he'd probably be like, that would probably be it for him. So I don't think that would be an option for me.
How high are you right now?
Just a little bit, but not. Just pretty much nice and relaxed, ready to talk wrestling, my friend. And you're bringing up Jeff Hardy and Kurt Angle, and literally, I don't think we could see Jeff Hardy return just because of his current contract status with TNA. Unless it is different, you would know yourself as a professional wrestler, and same with you, how it would all work and come along. But
I think he signed like a short-term deal, I think. I think he only signed off
But
for another year or two.
unless his deals are about to expire, I don't see him returning to WWE. But the question is, we don't know when his deal is going to expire, unless you're like Dave Meltzer or Brady Hicks or one of those top wrestling names.
And actually, before we take a break, that spawns another question. This is how these programs always end up going wrong. If Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy leave TNA, what does that leave for them? Like, those are probably their two biggest stars in terms of branding. Like, they've been signing a lot of independent guys, so which I've been saying for a while. I think it's a good move for them to make
Yes.
because they've blown their budget so many times on so many big stars. And in theory, these names should help. I understand where they're coming from because as a promoter, I want big stars on my show. It's going to help me draw. But they haven't got the return for the money they put out. So at this point, I think they really have to rebrand and rebuild their image, which they've been
Start from the
doing.
bottom.
So they've been hiring some top independent guys that are really good that for whatever reason haven't got on with WWE yet or with Ring of Honor.
I've
So
tried and-
yeah, the guy like Mike Bennett switched over from Ring of Honor to TNA. Trevor Lee is there. There's a few other guys that are really, really good. A couple girls they've signed. So if they lose guys like that, they're pretty much an independent on TV. But I don't think that's a bad thing for them at this point. Because I think so many people have been discouraged on the product over the years and going, oh, TNA, and it kind of has that stigma.
It's just a matter of, again, like bringing in those names and then not getting a return for the value.
Yeah.
So I mean, now if it's just like, they need an absolute rebranding at this point where it's that, this is who we are. It's
Right.
like, distance themselves from who they have been over these last couple of years. And,
Yeah.
if Kurt Angle, if Jeff Hardy's gone, and it's just pretty much all fresh faces.
Yeah.
Guys, where it's like bringing new fans in and somebody that guys can follow through, and maybe those wrestlers will make it up to
I
Yeah.
think
or something, right?
personally, I think it would be a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing would be is that a lot of wrestling fans, internet wrestling fans, have heard the news that TNA could barely fund their Slammiversary pay-per-view. So if they got rid of those names, there would be definitely more, as they say, cap space for their roster and to help pay for expenses. But if Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy are gone, then it's just going to be nothing more than a big name independent company. And
Well,
TNA used to be above that level, and it's just going to keep getting lower
Well, I
and
think
lower.
Ring of Honor
However,
is definitely considered bigger now. Like
Oh,
in
definitely.
people's eyes,
Definitely.
they're drawing huge houses. The TV's well distributed. I think from traveling with enough guys that have worked there, like most recently Frank Kazarian and other guys that have been up. We got EC3 coming up. I've heard everyone's heard the horror stories of time there, but I've always thought they were kind of given shit. A lot of times it was unjustified because there was a period of time where the shows were really, really good.
Yep.
But to me, my favorite time watching the TNA product was I think it was like when they were on at Fox Sports Net for a while. They were focusing on new talent. They were like putting an emphasis on AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Chris Daniels, the X Division. So even though maybe it wasn't drawing the huge rating they had hoped, and that's why they went and invested in all these big names.
That was right before Hogan.
Yeah, I think it was drawing enough of a buzz. These shows were still really good, so they would have maybe stuck to their guns a little while.
Yeah.
Like people were watching these shows, like these shows are great. Like those Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe matches and stuff. When those were first happening, like people were talking about them.
X Division.
Yeah, so I think if they would have stuck to their guns a little bit and like let that marinate and develop, instead of trying to really shotgun it and hope for the best result, I think they could have had something there. So I think they're kind of in a situation like that again, where they've got a lot of really good talent under their roster now, and a lot of guys that are hungry to succeed that for whatever reason, like I said, didn't get on with WWE, aren't with Ring of Honor, that want to make something their home. So you've got a committed group of guys that are going to go out there and kill it, trying to build their own brand, because that's their place to work right now.
Yep.
So I think if they focus on that, and that's what they're doing, and keep with that focus for a while, I think after a while people might come around again and go, hey, we got to check these shows out.
And I mean, wrestling is cyclical, so I mean, just give it some time. Hopefully, people kind of forget about how TNA has been running, and if they put their eyes back on the product, months or years from now, and see how it is, and they see that it has improved, who's to say that they wouldn't give it another chance? So.
Let's take our first commercial break, and we'll come back and we'll talk some Winnipeg wrestling with Marty Labossiere.
I go to Muscles by Myers because I trust them.
The staff is phenomenal. You come in, they're always positive, they're always happy to see you.
I walked in there not knowing a thing about supplements, and the staff there showed me everything I need to know.
I lost about 40 pounds and then put on about 10 pounds of muscle.
I've gotten stronger, I have more energy.
I go to Muscles by Myers because they offer great advice, competitive pricing, and they care about helping you achieve your goals.
If I can do it, you can do it.
CWE Canada.ca.
.123approved.ca specializes in first-time car loans and negative equity trades. Regardless of your credit past, we can help you get the financing that best suits your needs. To learn more about 123approved.ca or to see what you qualify for, call 204-444-4123 today.
CWE fans, the action and excitement of Adrenaline is only the beginning. To get the full CWE experience, check us out on YouTube. There, you can catch up on Adrenaline and classic CWE television episodes. Watch The Snake Bit with Jordan Garber, the weekly CWE podcast, promos, our event center, and so much more. Subscribe to the CWE YouTube channel today. don't have.
Zubaz.
Rooms and accommodations for CWE events provided by the Travel Lodge.
Give your body the edge in one click with musclesbymyers.com. We have sports supplements, vitamins and minerals for all lifestyles and levels of fitness. And call or email for free one-on-one guidance. Smart buyers shop at Myers and musclesbymyers.com.
How's everybody doing today? How do you become a wrestler? Yeah. The same way you become anything else. You have to go to school and work really, really, really hard.
And we are back here on the CWE webcast. Jordan Garber is more high, or higher,
Less sober.
than he
chilling.
was, just hanging
chilling.
out. Are you digging any chicks tonight?
You know what? We're gonna have to see where that entails. Maybe tonight. I don't know. I got a killer headache, so that's why I smoked a bunch of dope. But
You told me like last week when you were on the road with me, you had like 3 prospects.
I do have 3
Did
prospects.
you dick any of them down?
And I got a date set for next one. The next one in Minneapolis is the next time I go with you guys.
Yep.
And the other one was being a bitch and stopped talking to me. So 2 out of
Was that because you sent her like a dick pic unsolicited or something like that?
I don't know.
Why'd she stop talking to you?
I was
Gotta
just
be-
drunk when I messaged her and went way too fast. I was like, "Hey, you wanna just go for it? Can I give you this dick?" And she didn't seem to like that time.
It's a
because-
gamble. Sometimes
and she
it
doesn't
works,
know.
sometimes it doesn't.
She doesn't know what she's missing out on. This Garber's thing is exclusive to beautiful women. So
No hood rats? Is that what you're saying?
no hood rats, none. Only friends that are. That's cool. Alrighty.
All right, Marty Labossiere, you've been around the wrestling scene quite a while now, but you haven't been in recent times because you've suffered a back injury, which we're going to get to a little bit later in this interview here. But let's go back in time. 2005, you got involved in wrestling. You started training and refereeing. That was with Premier Championship Wrestling. In 2005, there was 100 wrestling companies in Winnipeg. How did you find PCW?
You know, funny you say that. I actually didn't know any wrestling companies in Winnipeg at the time. I went to the Lid one time. That's where they used to have their house shows, and I came across
Their only shows.
Their only shows, yeah, exactly. But they used to run it weekly, so that was cool. But yeah, I found out about it there. Saw the poster, so the next week I went with my dad and kind of checked it out a little bit. I went, I think, 3 weeks in a row, and then I hit up Andrew and asked him, you know.
So you saw like a poster in the bar for the wrestling, and then you went and checked it out. Oh,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. So, you know, it's something I always wanted to do, you know, before I turned 18, which didn't happen. I was actually 19 at the time when I got involved. So, yeah, I didn't know anywhere. I thought Winnipeg was kind of a dead town for wrestling, so.
It kind of is.
Well.
So were you like a lifelong wrestling fan?
I was never allowed to watch wrestling though, actually. So I had to sneak it by, you know, kind of get my fill every once in a while.
Were you born in Winnipeg? Born
in Lorette.
Lorette, so not too far away.
Yeah,
The parents
not too far
didn't
away.
approve of wrestling?
My dad didn't care. My mom didn't like it so much.
Same way with me, actually, the exact same way.
So were you a fan kind of like your whole life, or was there a certain area you started watching?
I was a fan my whole life, mostly. I was a big fan of Rey Mysterio Jr. Growing up, WCW.
Okay.
And then kind of watched him throughout as he went to WWE. I was also a huge fan of like the Attitude Era, the Rock and stuff. So when I go to like, you know, friends' houses and stuff, I kind of sneak peek there. 'cause
Yeah,
at
that's
home,
probably why your
parents-
mom didn't like you watch wrestling, because Attitude Era was all tits and ass and swearing.
Exactly. But that was the best years, right? So
Yeah, you were.
yeah, but
So 2005, you finally decided to ask Andrew to start training. 2005 was a good time at PCW. Kenny Omega, Mentolo, Ross Skills, Shane Madison. It was packed at the time with really good. The who's who of Winnipeg wrestling was wrestling for PCW.
yeah.
So you asked to inquire about training. Was there actually formal training at the time, or was it just kind of loosey-goosey before shows?
Well, it was kind of, there was a training session starting the next week, I think, which only happened for one session. It was, not to say anything bad about, I'm gonna name drop here if that's cool.
Yeah,
But yeah.
Cause heat.
Yeah. Moses Luke actually trained for that 1 week. You know, he's a great guy. I talked to him lots, but at the time, the training session was entailed of sweep the leg, go for the pin. That's how we started training. So I was like, okay, this is kind of stupid. And then the next week didn't show up. So that was kind of how that started. So then I just kept refereeing for a bit. Anyways, started with Chris Markswell.
So you were like kind of like learning to ref on the fly while you trained before the shows, or was that it for the training for a bit?
That was kind of it for probably about 3 weeks. Then Mentolo started up his own training after that. So
I imagine just from my experiences with him, that training was probably a lot more intense and a lot more disciplined.
it was. Let's just say that there was only a couple of us that actually kept training. Chris Markswell, just to be stubborn, and then me, of course. And then we got later on down the years, Jay Walker kind of joined for some training, and then that's he kind of got involved too. But at the time, Jay Walker's come a long way. But at the time, Mentolo wouldn't want to train him because he told him to work out and come back later, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, I kind of trained with him for most of my.
If I recall, you were always in pretty good physical condition.
I was, yeah. Not so much anymore, but at the time, yeah, I was in pretty good shape.
Yeah, like, Mentolo's training is great, and it's unfortunate he doesn't get to train anymore because he would make sure guys are ready. If you weren't taking it seriously, he would get rid of you. Even if you were passionate about it, if you didn't have the right skill set to do it, he would tell you need to go get in shape and then come back and do this,
Yeah.
which is not the case anymore because it's so hard just to get people to train in general that you kind of need the revenue to keep the class running or to keep the facility open. That so many guys get in, or they'll train for a little bit and then they start getting booked on some low end shows and then they just start wrestling and stop training.
Yeah.
I always liked that Mentolo held his training in a very serious regard, that if you were training under him, you were under his learning tree and you had a certain etiquette to live up to. You mentioned, training with Moses Luke was very, casual. Did you enjoy the intense discipline training of Mentolo?
I did actually, built a lot of character. There's a couple of times where some guys would go out and, I got to puke now. But they were just intense, and you could tell that he was passionate about what he was doing, what he was teaching you. Fantastic trainer in my opinion. He's always been, you can always talk to him about stuff, you have questions, you have answers him. He's always there for you, and you just got to be willing to put in the work, be willing to train, and of course be in a little bit of physical condition too. So
I imagine there's probably many mornings you weren't walking so well after from too many squats.
Oh yeah, I think, funny story, I think we did 450 squats, me and him, kind of kept up, and it was, the next day, like even that same day I was having issues running the ropes after that, because his training sessions weren't just like, an hour here, an hour there. You do about an hour and a half cardio, and after that you're learning how to wrestle. So it was long nights, and then the next morning you're just hurting.
That's another thing I've always liked about his classes, make sure his students are conditioned.
Yeah.
And I love that now, people can't handle that. I drop in to try to help out with classes when I can, and it amazes me the amount of people that think they can wrestle and not be in any kind of physical condition to do it. You think just watching wrestling, if you're a fan of wrestling, you look on TV and go, all right, these guys are pretty athletic. If I'm going to do this, I should probably get myself into some kind of shape. But everyone, I don't know if in their mind they go, oh, wrestling's fake, it's easy, I can do it. And then you get all these guys that come down that can't do 20 squats, never mind 400 of them. Granted, 400 squats is a little excessive. I've even heard the Japanese have stopped training in that way. It's just so bad on your knees.
It is, yeah.
We've learned over time that that's maybe not the best for your body, and there's other ways to really put people through the paces. Was there any other notable people that came through training with you guys?
I guess later on in life, Well, mostly just me and Markswell. I did most of the training when I was doing it, and then after that, Tyler Coleman came in.
So Tyler was after yourself, correct?
Tyler was after myself.
Was there any like good stories of guys coming in that just couldn't hack it, that were just debacles? Like, one of my favorite failed, like training failed stories.
There was not Draven. I can't remember his name now. It's been a while since I've seen him. Draco?
David Draco.
Yeah, he came in for a bit. He was one of the guys that kind of puked. But he came in for bits. I know the Stallion came in for a bit. He was actually physical shape. He was doing pretty good.
He was another guy who was in good physical shape. He was like a part of that backyard group that was like wrestling for Christ.
Yeah.
He did a little bit of training with Gene Swan and myself, like when I was training under Gene, like 2003, 2004. Had a ton of potential, but
definitely a lot of potential.
Yeah, just his heart didn't seem in it, and his attitude didn't always seem in it either.
Yeah.
I thought he was somebody that could have done really well for himself. He had the natural ability to do it.
Yeah, he definitely did. Him also, he suffered, I guess, kind of like a neck injury.
Is that what it was?
So he kind of didn't want to continue because his health was number one, right? So, of course.
When you were ready to have your first match, was that decided by Mentolo? He said, okay, you're ready to start doing this?
My first official match, yes. I did actually, when wrestling for Christ, I ended up working with the Stallion over at the airport. So we kind of met that way, and he basically said, "Oh, come check us out," kind of thing. So I was like, "All right." Mentolo's training was actually on hold for a while because I think we lost our training facility. That's when they moved to the monthly shows, I think.
Yeah.
So we couldn't do it as often, and I wanted to get in the ring, so I kind of went out there, and then of course Andrew showed up to kind of stir some shit because it was kind of funny.
What happened?
Him and I think maybe Adam Knight came down just to kind of check it out because they were doing like a show, but it wasn't even a show. It was just like a couple friends on the sidelines and then doing some wrestling or whatever. Right. So,
right.
So me and him kind of put on a match, and this is actually when I actually impressed me and Stallion impressed Andrew, and the next week he wanted to book me on the show.
Oh, cool.
So I guess
was Mentolo okay with you in that show?
That show, no. So I paid for it and started the next. But he did approve of me wrestling afterwards.
Okay.
For Andrew the next week, so that was cool.
So who was your first official match when you started wrestling for PCW?
The first official match was Mike Garnott, which was kind of just a squash match.
Okay.
Where I actually squashed him, which was kind of strange for a rookie doing his first match as a squash, but it was basically just to get me kind of out there, and then some guys came to save Mike because he was kind of big mouth manager guy. So
those were the shows at Dylan's.
Those were the Dylan's.
Yeah, cause if I recall, the crew was pretty thin at that point, so it was probably just we got a new fresh face. Let's give him a push.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I got my push, and then entered into the Suicide Kings with Nate Hardy.
So that was relatively early in your career, starting with Nate.
That was.
Was that a bond between you and Nate that you pitched the office, or was that something Andrew said? You guys are two young guys.
Two young guys, kind of the same. Like I'm a shorter guy too. I'm a bit more built than Nate was, but.
Oh, I would say a little more than
a little bit, yeah. But
I think Nate's a little the size of a garbage thief.
But he's in good shape, anyways, or was at the time. I haven't seen him in a while. So, but either way, yeah. I guess Andrew thought we'd be a good fit. We both do high flying stuff, so we created a name.
You guys got a pretty good push right out the gate. I remember you guys were you won the tag titles. You were kind of working on top. Did you feel rushed into that position, or did you feel ready and capable from training with Mentolo for so long?
I felt pretty good, ready and capable for not for most of it, but at the beginning I'd be kind of the guy that comes in to do the hot spots and stuff, where Nate would take most of the heat just to because he was more experienced than I was. So for a good part of it, that's kind of how it worked out. So I would get more experience that way, and then I work with guys like Team Impact and Mike and Duke Chaos and stuff like that to kind of get more experience. I did some solo matches.
Who were some of the guys you felt that really helped you come along in those early years?
Team Impact for sure. We had a huge feud with them. So I think we beat them for the title and lost the title to them kind of thing. And I think.
I find Royce is always good for young guys to work with because Royce always wants to push the envelope and try new things and work really hard and steal the show. So as a young guy, you're always in a position that you have to step it up and work outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Where a lot of times, at least in Winnipeg, and it's more common now. There's so many green wrestlers. A lot of times, the young guy gets booked with the other young guy, and neither one of them know how to carry themselves, never mind somebody else, so you don't learn anything. So I always thought it was good when Royce would get to work with young guys, especially guys that were athletic, because that's the style of wrestling he likes to work.
Yeah,
it really helps you like come out of your comfort zone a little bit and try things you probably wouldn't try otherwise that you haven't really gone over before. And
like jumping off the rafters at Dillon's, you know, that was scary, but we ended up doing it. So.
Like how high were the rafters? Like
Oh, for I don't know, 10 feet or so, maybe more. Funny thing about that is that when we both climbed up there, one of the rafters actually shifted backwards.
oh shit!
So we almost both lost our footing.
Oh my
So we kind of cut back up and like looked at each other. We almost died. Okay, forward.
Let's go for it.
So yeah, it's pretty intense.
I guess I was probably under the tutelage of, was it under Mentalo you went and did some shows for Gold Dragon Wrestling as well?
It was, yeah. Me and him took the car, headed out there. I went once with him and Scotty. I don't know, Scotty Rapper now.
Scotty Raver. Is that the show like Scotty Raver like broke someone's neck on a DDT or something like that?
Correct, yes.
what happened?
Just, I don't know, I didn't see it, but...
He was working one of those guys that
Yeah.
should not have been in the ring, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple of those out there and something went wrong.
Something went wrong. I don't know whose fault it was, but most likely the other guys, but who knows, because he's been doing it for quite a while too.
Yeah. What was your experience like out in Moose Jaw?
It was good. I wrestled Despair, so, you know, the bigger guy, David versus Goliath type of match, and, you know, it worked out. I ended up losing that match, but it was fun. The promoter looked impressed, and he was like, you know, you can come back anytime, you're a polite guy, you're a good worker, kind of thing, come back anytime. So I ended up going one more time with Chris Markswell, and I think he broke someone's nose.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
So Winnipeg guys get quite the reputation in Moose Jaw.
yeah, no kidding. So yeah, I came out clean. So
So, what was your relationship with Andrew for so many years? Because you started there in 2005, and you were working with him up until a couple of years ago when your back got hurt.
yeah,
Did you always have a good relationship with Andrew?
yeah, we did. I got a lot of emails from him. Just when I did end up leaving for a year to go to Toronto to pursue some schooling. So he'd always email me once in a while saying, hey, when you come back, you know, I'd like to have you back on the shows, blah, blah, blah. So me and him, we always saw pretty good eye to eye. Yeah.
When CWE first started doing CWE TV, we were doing Small-Tained, that's when the Blake Martell character was born. Was that once again under the influence of Mentalo, or was that a personal choice?
That was Mentalo came up with the name. Actually, you know, Martell, Marty, and then Blake. So I guess him and I don't know if Tyler had any idea with that too. They kind of brainstormed a little bit, but yeah, that was under Mentalo. He wanted me to. I wanted to too, but he wanted me to, you know, work the shows and stuff and see how.
So you were just wanting to try something different, branch out, make more of a character.
Yeah.
Yeah, shortly after that you hurt your back, right?
It is, yeah.
So what exactly did it happen on?
You know, I'm not sure exactly what move it happened on. Just one day, it just kind of dropped out on me like the next day, and then it's never really been the same since.
So was it like one bump that did it where you're like, oh shit, I'm hurt?
I think it could have been, yeah. It's kind of a blur to me. It just happened.
So did it happen during the match and you continued on, and then like the next day is when you kind of felt the aftermath type of
Yeah,
thing?
like I felt it a little bit not as normal as normal. Like it normally would be.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, something happened here, but whatever. So I just kept going, and then the next day it was just out of place. My body's like this.
Oh, yeah, I experienced that.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Did you like go see someone to confirm that, or was it just like you knew right away?
I kind of knew right away. Basically, I got some MRIs done. I had slip disc, herniated discs, and I just did a lot of chiro, a lot of physio and stuff to try to get back into it. And I did do a couple matches after that too. But it's just not been the same.
Didn't feel the same on your back?
Now, when you did those matches, and it's still unfortunately the case now, Andrew always not cared for guys wrestling on CWE events. Was there any, you know, dissension between the two of you for doing those shows?
You know, surprisingly, no. Never heard nothing about it. He knew I did it, but he never said anything to me. He just, I think he gave me the okay, like you can go, and as long as you do both, kind of thing, which I had no issues with.
Maybe the only guy ever to not have like an all-out war with him, without having to do multiple shows.
Yeah, maybe.
That must be a credit to being such a nice guy that it's like, all right, we can let him do it.
Maybe. I think the one thing was to have a different name too, you know, so
Yeah.
that I could be a different character over there and a different character
Right.
here so they don't cross. And so I'm not getting squashed over here and being top of the show here. It's, or whatever the case may be, right?
So you're kind of out of the business now with the back injury. Do you see yourself coming back at any point? Do you plan to rehab and give it a go, or is it not?
I'd like to.
Think long term and
yeah, I'd definitely like to. Right now I can't see it, but I think soon I'm gonna try starting in the gym again. Do some back strengthening exercise and stuff like that. Try to get that back as strong as I can, and maybe we can see that. But as of right now, I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah. So what are you doing now? Like I was mentioning before the podcast here a couple years ago when I was living with an ex-girlfriend of mine. It was quite common. I would bump into you on the elevator because you were on your way up to the same floor to visit a girl that you were dating that you ended up marrying. So you're now married. You're out of the business. What's life for Marty Labossiere now?
Now it's doing a lot of house renos. Got ourselves a house, so you know, got a puppy, raising a dog, just living a normal life, working 9-to-5 job.
Gonna be raising some kids soon too with that dog?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe a year or two, but right now, I'm on the fence about that. You know, I have so many friends with tons of kids and stuff, and then I see them sometimes, and I'm like, that's enough. But we'll see how it goes.
Our sponsor, Greatest5.com, they ask, who are the greatest 5 Winnipeg wrestlers you never got the opportunity to wrestle that you would like to one day if you got the chance?
One-on-one, I have wrestled Kenny Omega in a tag, like a fatal 4-way tag, but I have never wrestled him solo. That'd be one for sure. I've trained with you, but I've never actually had a match.
Yeah, we've never gotten in the ring together, come to think of it. Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be a good one. Mike Angels, again, never got in the ring with him.
I think he might be officially retired now. I don't see him too often either.
Is he? Okay.
Comes out of the woodwork once in a while, but I don't know if he's still active, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah. Tatum would be another guy. He's good.
He's retiring this year. You got to get on that.
All right, I'm coming out of retirement. One more guy, yeah. You know, there's so many good talents in Winnipeg that, you know, kind of branch out. It's kind of tough to pick guys, right? But yeah, I've really enjoyed my time.
Well, if you don't have a 5th guy, who would be one guy you do not want to get in the ring with that you haven't yet? You're like, nope, not doing it.
Oh boy, Zach Mercury.
Yes! That's a name that comes up quite often when that question is asked on the podcast, believe it or not. Any specific reasoning?
I just heard that he's dangerous. No offense, Zach.
No offense, you just suck. Wrap up the programs. Is there a social media that people can get in contact with you if they want to stay in touch or follow what's going on in the life of Marty Labossiere and a potential comeback somewhere down the road?
There's Facebook, Marty Labossiere. There's Twitter, MRT911.
For the viewer at home, maybe spell Labossiere, because I was telling you before the program, when I used to book you, I had no idea how to spell your name. I'd always have to look it up.
It's Labossiere.
That sounds simple enough.
I forgot it already.
Yeah.
That's because you're high, Jordan Garber.
That is not true. Well, a little.
You were wearing weed on your sweater when we did the snake pit.
You gotta live.
And drop your phone.
You gotta live that life. But
that's going to conclude another one. Thank you very much for taking the time to come talk to us. It's great to see you. It's been a long time, and hopefully that back does heal up and we can get some of those matches crossed off for you, because you're always great to have around the locker room and a great addition to the show. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that your back heals up. And we'll be back next week with another retired fellow Winnipeg wrestling alumni, Marius, who will be joining the program to talk his 12 plus years in the business. So we'll see you next week.